So I'm not going to go into the background of IFS, and I'm just starting with this talk, which is about what to do when you're on your own, when you haven't got a therapist, or between sessions. When I was researching this, because I spent a lot of time researching and bringing things in from other modalities, there were two major questions that came up. One is, do I need to be in self before I start? And the second one is, what do I do with exiles? And so I'd like to sort of weave that in, but also right from the start, self is an elusive concept, and but also we know it. We know the feeling of self. And the more work we can do with IFS, unblending, asking parts to give us a little bit of space, the more self there will be. So my view, and the view of many in the IFS community, is see how you go. There are ways, and I bring in a lot of polyvagal theory to help you from a bottom-up perspective to find self, to find as much of self as you can. So for those of you that don't know so much about IFS, self is the core of who we really are. Dick uses words like calm, curiosity, compassion, creativity, courage, connection. I could add, and we can add other words too, like presence and flow, joy. It's the feeling, and I don't know if you know this feeling, of when you're playing an instrument, when you're painting, when you've picked up a puppy, you look at a beautiful sunset, you gaze on the face of your beloved. I'm imagining that this is a feeling that you can touch, that you have had in your nervous system. Would that be? Yeah, I can see some nodding. So you know this feeling. From polyvagal, there are some hacks to just help you. The vagal nerve runs sort of from the ear, cheeks, and down the spine, and into heart and lungs. So a hack is to smile with your eyes, smile with your mouth. Stroke your cheek. Listen to music that makes you feel good. Go outside and look at the beauty of nature. Hum. Sing. These help you move towards, regulation of your vagal nerve. But in IFS, we do it the other way too, which is to, come into a space introspectively inside and say, hey, I'm here. Could you give me a little bit of space? Could you come out of my body just a little bit? Just so that I can get to know you. Just like you would a child who's in your face. You can't, if you're blended with the part can't talk with you, and you can't really get to know the part. But if they come and sit on your knee, come and sit beside you, you can form much more of a relationship. So my view is have a go. And the more IFS you do, the more yourself will fill the space within yourself and with other people. It's sort of, and the more you come to places like this, hopefully, self is a bit catching. So then the next one is, we work with the protective system. And this, my view, is that that's where we stay. And it's very much the view of the IFS community that if you wanted to unburden your exiles, it's really sensible to do it with a therapist, with help. I'm going to have two caveats to that. Derek Scott did an excellent video a little bit ago, earlier this year, saying buddy up. buddy up with someone in this room. There's Facebook groups, there's, I'm sure that there's other ways that we can find that we can put people together to find someone that's warm, that's open, that can actively listen like we do at the end of this session, or the second hour. It's about being there and feeling cared for. Someone else who can hold a little bit of self with you. And that's not to say you get to do the unburdening process, but there's certainly something about when you buddy up, you can be there with someone when they sort of are a little bit there with their exiles. Personally, I really like, I don't know your religious, spiritual beliefs, but there's an American psychotherapist, psychologist, Buddhist teacher called Tara Brach, and she does all sorts of podcasts, and she has a process called RAIN, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it's recognise, is it allow or accept, investigate and nurture. And then one of her practices, so you do that with a part, and one of her practices is if she's holding grief or holding sadness or anger or, what we would call parts, and it's time to let it go. So we could include shame here. Rather than doing the IFS unburdening process on your own, I invite you can consider doing something like the Tara Brach process. And she does the 3 breaths. And you breathe out. You're really feeling, you're pausing, you're doing the RAIN process. And you're pausing, feeling the feeling. A feeling goes through your body in 1.5 minutes, apparently. So it's a bit like that Coke bottle. You open it, you let the fizz out, and then you close it again, and then a little bit later on. So sitting with a feeling that may be difficult, and then breathing it out. Breathing it out into a lake, breathing it out into the forest, breathing it out into the light. So it's not the IFS unburdening process, is what I would recommend. I would sort of find a different modality unless you go to a therapist for that. What can you do now? So we're going to really stick with the, really getting to know your protective system. Getting to know those parts of you. So number 1, I'm going to say buddy up. Budding up's really good. Number 2 could be bringing in the power of the group, the power of self. It's the view of many that self is not only you and your seat of consciousness, it's connected with everyone else's self. We are all connected. You may or may not hold that view, but you also could bring in the power of the IFS community to ask to hold you. Just as human beings, we're wired for connection. And, doing this on our own can feel really isolating. And we're looking for internal attachment. Classically, we look for attachment with others, but IFS is the process of you turning and forming a secure, solid attachment inside before we return outside. And, not but, and how wonderful it is to be in connection with someone else when you're doing this hard, important, fabulous work. And that's not to say you can't do it on your own, but just holding someone dear to you in your mind while you're, asking them for a little bit of support, just in the ether. Obviously, you can do this on the go, in your car, walking in nature. But if you were at home, and you might decide to do the regularity. On a Tuesday, I'm going to sit down for half an hour, or I'm going to sit, or twice a week. This is obviously coming from a manager part. Manager parts, the ones that take you to therapy. But some people find it really helpful to have a space where there are lovely anchors around. So Deb Dana talks about anchors. Put a lovely bunch of flowers, or something really soft that you can touch, or something that's visually lovely, or you might put in something that smells nice. You might have a cup of warming tea. You might have a candle, anything like that. Things that make you feel, again, taking you a little bit to ventral vagal, that are supporting you as you do this work, to give you a little bit of container. You might put some music on. Dan Siegel talks about what fires together, wires together. So the repetition is really lovely. So you come and you sit down, and you know this, it's comforting, it sets you off. So trying to do some sort of rhythm, some sort of practice is really helpful. That's an offering rather than a you have to. Please know that this is an invitation, never this is the rules, Tash said. I don't. It's things that sort of personally have helped me. You might bring in a little body movement. I heard, there was a need for movement, but before you sit down, you might do some stretching or a little bit of yoga, or Tai Chi, or just even little stretch. Now we move on to what do we do? There's lots and lots of ways, which hopefully I'm going to share about. But there's the interoception just in your own world, and then there's the externalizing your parts. So the one that's I do with most of my clients most of the time is I'm sitting there having a dialogue internally with my parts. So softening the gaze or closing eyes, and there are three main things that you can do, which is the first, as I've mentioned, is I go inside and I go, hey everyone, I'm here. And so I've got my eyes closed and I can feel some parts coming to, be around. Sometimes I imagine that I'm in a lovely kitchen with lovely tea and nice things around me, and I'm inviting people around a table, or I might imagine that I'm on a beach with a campfire and, sound of the waves, and my parts are coming to visit. And so I'm inviting them, and I'm just saying, hey, who's here? Who wants a conversation? Like you would do, if you had a bunch of mates around or your family. And, who would like to go first? And, and you've found a seat. Who's on this side of the table? Ah, hello to you. And then who's on that side of the table? Giving them daggers. Because parts have alliances with each other and clusters. Parts have polarizations. The one that wants to eat the cream cake, the one that doesn't want you to eat the cream cake. And away you go. So I'm sat there on my kitchen table, or on the seat by my kitchen table, or on the beach, and I'm noticing, my solidity, or I'm noticing, that I'm here. I feel calm. How do I feel towards my parts? Okay, I'm feeling really curious. I'm feeling really warm-hearted and open towards them. This is a good place to start. If I'm feeling blended, I ask a part if it would consider invitation rather than demand to come and sit next to me. And then the IFS process around, getting to know a part, what do you want me to know? What are you here for? What's your message for me today? And what are you hoping to achieve doing this role? And what are your fears if you're not, if you weren't to do this role? So and other questions that hopefully will emerge from your curiosity. So how old are you? Can you show me things that you've been up to? times you've been around. When did you first come in? Can you show me the scene you first came in? How are you hoping to help? How well do you know me? How old do you think I am? You might catch them up, because often parts think you're sort of 4, because parts, as we know, come in when you're really little. Or mainly under 20 is what I should say. Dick says mainly under 10. But, that's obviously dependent on you. And you can have all sorts of different conversations internally in the internal process. What I find when I'm doing IFS on my own, I do that several times a day. I check in. In the middle of last night, I was having a part that kept waking me up going, you must remember this. And you just like, hey, I really hear that. Thank you. Can you let me sleep now? I really need to go to sleep. But the externalizing is really wonderful also to do. You sit down with your things, and there's all sorts of different modalities, and which one is going to be the one that you really like, because some people love to write, and some people love to draw, and some people like to put marks on paper, some people like to dance, some people like to listen to music, walk around the room. But there's something about putting it out on paper or putting it out outside the body that can give you a little bit of distance, which when you're doing IFS on your own makes it simpler, or makes it sort of, you can unblend a little bit easier. I'm seeing some nodding. So I'm sorry, I'm going to go back just a minute. Hi, how are you was one thing. The second thing was, if you are triggered, if you've just had an argument with a partner, or you've had something, you can do something similar. You getting to know a part. There's something called a fire drill that Dick does on YouTube. You can look that up. But it's putting the part, imagining the person doing the thing in a room, and you ask yourself, how do I feel towards? And then you see which parts come up. So, this person's doing this slightly irritating thing that they're doing, or they're being really sad, and I'm feeling a real pull to rescue. Okay, that's my rescuing part. Okay, now how do I feel when they're doing this, when they're being really sad? Oh, I'm feeling really compassionate. Okay, this is a good place to start. Or if they're doing their irritating thing, oh God, I'm really frustrated by them. Okay, hello to frustrated part. Would you trust me just a moment and come behind me? Now, how do I feel towards this person doing their thing? I'm really judgmental. I wouldn't do anything like that. Okay, hi, judgy part. You could have a conversation here, or you could ask the part, could it come and stand behind you? Now, how do I feel towards this part? There was a third one, a body. If you, have I was noticing when we were going round, I've got something going around my knees. It's like, oh, tell me about that. What message have you? So you're connecting your body sensations. We'll come to how you can externalize that in a minute. But, self, me, asking, being curious about, what is this neck ache I have? And immediately I can, my neck ache is often when I'm angry with someone. Who am I angry? Oh, okay, you're angry with this person. Oh, okay, that's making sense. So, the body holds so much wisdom. Bessel van der Kolk's words, the body holds the score. And you can answer, we can find the answers, the body knows the answers. The parts have so much wisdom and knowledge that we don't have in our rational thinking. So, coming to the media now, the media of what to do, of when you're externalizing. So, art, drawing, something visual. So paper or clay or photography. They're wonderful ways of, putting a part or meeting a part on a piece of paper. My colleague Ruth Culver, she does an amazing intuitive drawing course, and it's, parts are, you have a part and you just might put it down with a little figure or a little a certain colour or a certain, where is it on the paper, and you're just asking the part to represent itself on the paper. Or you can do it, it's really what is coming from you to go onto the paper from this, about this part. You could ask a part to blend with you a little bit and represent itself. That's a lovely way of doing it as well. You could do polarizations. So on this side of the paper there's this one, and on this side of the paper there's another one. There's ways of C. Sykes does an upside down triangle. So you put the blamers, the managers, on one side, and then the flame, and yes, the flamers, and the firefighters on one side, and then the exiles at the bottom. And so you're mapping them. You could draw out a shape of a body or even a stick person, and represent the feelings and the parts and different areas of your body. I can recommend Michelle Glass's book. She has all sorts of ways of doing this. You can, there's the classic IFS mandala, putting your parts into different areas with, of course, self in the middle. You could have a part on the paper or in the clay or in the photography and start asking questions. So we talked about doing it internally. You could now, you've got the part on the paper and you can ask it questions and you can keep the process going. And, who knows, magic things may come out. Polarizations, wonderful self-energy idea on doing art with self-energy, sort of finding curiosity. What does curiosity look like? Drawing compassion, drawing courage. See if that can just emerge on paper. There's somewhere on my website, that I found somewhere, and I'll pop up again. There's a self-energy wheel, and you can map, out of 10, how much are you full of courage today, but not feeling very much curiosity, and how much connection do you feel, and mapping that on a however often basis is really lovely. And the Centre app, which I'll come to in a bit, invites you to do that every day if you're managing parts, like going on an app and doing that. So I did in photography, I don't know if you've spotted, I found photos of myself when I was a little girl, obviously not in the pain, because that wasn't photographed, but around that time. And I got some amazing photo editor to edit photos of me as a little girl with me now. And I can't tell you, it's so amazing. So a lot of this work is about inner child work. So I was, the little version of me was representing an exile, sad, lonely, not feeling good enough. And then being with me as an adult was... No, I put me next to her, or sitting on my lap, or, really engaged. The day I went to boarding school, it was like, oh, I've got a photo of me in my car, and how amazing, I've got a photo of me as an adult, as me now, self, sat with. I feel really teary, and you know, and then I've now also got this little girl going off to boarding school, sat with me in my sitting room on my sofas at home, and so what, you know, if art is your thing, you know, which one of those, clay, you know, watercolors, is it oils you like? You know, you've got so much choice here. Then the next thing is writing, poetry, journaling, letters. You can write to your parts. Your parts can write to each other with you being present. I love journaling, and I used to do, parts of me like journaling, other parts don't. It's so interesting. I don't know if anyone's ever done the artist's way, but it was in morning pages, you just sit and write. And you write for 20 minutes, and you write whatever's coming up. And I don't know if anyone knows the Natalie Goldberg, I think it is. She wrote Writing Down the Bones. And you just write and write and write. And if you stop writing, if you feel, sometimes you can feel a part stopping you, you ask that part, could you just give me some space? Her expression is, you know, go for the jugular. It's this, there's a part that's stopping you, and actually there'll be more information. You know, if you can ask that part to step aside and see what else is coming. And you know, if you can, not censoring it, you could do a little dash for each part, and you're not necessarily identifying parts, unless, you know, you can choose to go back later and say, oh, that's this part. And so that's one way of doing it. You're just writing, or you're doing my 3-part thing of either, you know, speaking to your body, turning up on a beach, or turning up in a kitchen and just saying who's here, or I want to look at this particular part, this particular incident, this particular trigger. You can do that when you're writing. So again, a lot of choice. Drama, love a bit of drama. I love constellations, and it really excites me. So having your parts on paper and putting them on the floor and standing near them or on them, particularly if you've got a buddy, providing a little bit of extra self-energy. It's quite amazing if, you know, I put down my angry part here and my people-pleasing part there, and then self-energy here, and I stand near self-energy or on it. You could use cushions or paper or hearts or whatever works. And I stand near my self-energy, and I can feel it now. And then I shift a little bit, and you obviously can use hands as well, but it's on paper. And, you know, here's my angry, I can feel the whoosh of power when I'm near my angry part. And then I'm going to come over here and stand over here, and this is my people-pleasing part, and I can feel a bit like this. And so I can stand on these representations, and I can, you know, ask questions. You know, and having someone there as well is really helpful, because they could ask questions as well. You can really work in a collaborative manner. So constellations, and I'm sure there's other ways of dramatising your parts and moving around the room, and that's not my area, but I'm imagining this. There's ways you could imagine. So then things like sand trays, toys, puppets. You can do online sand trays. But if you've got any access to some small children, they're likely to have puppets, and you can use the toys, the puppets, to represent parts, to, you know, where, this one likes this one, and then they really don't like that one, and you could ask questions. Why is that? Tell me about that. And it's amazing how it just comes through. So, then movement and breath and body and music. How fun is going and finding different songs that represent different parts that you can listen to when you're having, this part is around. And I certainly can, when I'm feeling angry, there's certain songs I go to, and when I've got parts that are feeling sad, there's other songs I can go to. And again, being in connection with these and playing with them. There's these books that I've popped down there. Those are some of the ones. There's daily readers. There's ones that you can. There's Bonnie's and Tammy Swanberger's the various workbooks that you can take all sorts of stuff from. And there's 2 different apps. There's a IFS guide. That's one app, but the one that seems to be really popular and easily accessible is the Center app, Sentur, that Michelle Glass, and she does meditations within, and you can map your parts and you can do all sorts of things. If social media or apps are your thing, then that's something that you could consider. Just to complicate matters a little bit, we started on self, and I'm now going to finish a little bit. It's when you're doing IFS on your own or at home between sessions or whatever, it's really common to get a little bit blended with what we call self-like parts. And I just wanted to pop them in just so that because if we name them, you might spot them a bit easier. I certainly, I can when I'm starting talking to a part, I can try and rescue it. Oh, that sounds really awful. It sounds, and trying to pull it out, trying to put in my own agenda. So I have a rescuey self-like part that comes in and tries to sort of sort it out. I have another one that has a huge agenda to, heal, move on, get rid of. So, the more I get to know that part, it's got really fabulous intention. Its effect, not so good, because other parts in the system, don't like it very much because they're sort of, trying to be moved on. So, what else do we have? The sort of love and light one, sort of it's all meant to be. I certainly can have a sort of wise, healy sort of part that comes in and tries to sort it all out. As a therapist, I have my therapist part can really go in there and do psychoed and project wildly, and so that there's often an apology that's going on. Sorry, I went there. But so just watching out for them, just holding them lightly. That yes, we can be there with our lovely big warm open hearts with our parts, but protectors are going to try and come in, particularly ones that think that they're us. Lots of managers, they're very over-identified and think they're us. So I hope that's made sense. There's an awful lot of information in there. Sorry if that's too much. Yeah, thank you.